Hi guys, my name is Bobby. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm bringing you my very late January wrap up. So I'm sorry that this video is so late. I've had time to film it, and I read 4 books in January, so I have stuff to talk about. They were all ebooks, so that's why I'm not holding any books in the thumbnail or at all in this video. Again, I'm sorry. My laptop died, which I think I mentioned in my February TBR that my laptop died, or, but we had another one. So the other one that we have is very old. My husband bought like new memory for it and all that stuff, so it's working and it's just fine. So I downloaded my editing software onto it. I hooked my phone up because I film on my phone. I don't have a fancy camera. I do have a ring light that I use, but it costs like $12. Like, it's not fancy. This is just for fun for me. I don't make money off of this. This is literally just a hobby for me. And so I went and plugged my phone in so that I could move the video from my phone into my editing software. And the computer didn't recognize my phone at all. Like, it didn't pop up in the side like it should so that I could pull the video off. It's just like it was charging my phone, but it didn't recognize it as something real. So I mentioned this to my husband, and he told me today that if I can't figure it out, he's going to try to help me figure it out. Otherwise, just like my February TBR, I'm going to have to edit this video on my phone, which, let me tell you, is not easy and not fun. First of all, I'm an old lady when it comes to YouTube, so when it comes to editing and all that stuff, I can do it. I'm not bad and I'm not terrible. I'm glad I learned how. But I'm not fancy. I can't do any of the fancy shit. I can't even figure out how to pause my video and do a voiceover. Like, that's how bad. That's why I tend to put shit on the screen instead, because I can't figure that out. So I can do base knowledge shit. So doing that on my phone, which I have an iPhone 11, so the screen's about this big, but it's way different than having a nice big laptop to do it on. And then when it came to making the thumbnail, which the editing, I'm like, okay, I kind of figured that out, but the proportions look weird because I don't know exactly what it's just ridiculous. So then when I go to make my thumbnail, I use a certain app to make my thumbnail, and you can do it on a computer and you can do a whole bunch more stuff. There's an app for your phone, but there's not near as much many fonts. There is so much stuff you can't do that I usually do. So therefore my thumbnail looked like shit in my last video, and I was just like, no, like, I didn't like it. I didn't like how it looked. And then I had to upload it onto YouTube from my phone, which was not easy either. So I've delayed putting off making this video just because I'm dreading all the extra work that I'm gonna have to put into it. And I also don't think the quality is as good. Granted, like I said, I'm not making like the best quality videos ever in the world, but it's not as good as what I'm used to putting out, which, I have low standards, but even still, like, if I felt bad about the quality, then it wasn't good. So he thinks he can help me. We'll see. At least if I've got it filmed, it's ready to go. Hopefully I can get it up today. If it goes up today, happy Valentine's Day. If not, it'll be the next day or so, because I'm gonna have to sit here and edit this. So anyways, that's where we're at. So if I can get it figured out, then there'll definitely be more content. I have some planned. I just haven't done them because I don't feel comfortable doing it if I have to do everything on my phone. And I can't afford to get a new laptop. So this is where we're at. If not, then until I can get a new laptop or get it figured out to where I can edit on a computer, or figure out the one that we have, then I will only be doing TBRs and wrap-ups until then, because that I can handle doing, and that's important stuff and not a lot of the extra fun stuff, because I'm not going to go through and do all the extra fun stuff if I can't edit it properly. Like, in the thumbnail just bugged me. My last thumbnail was shit. It looked like my first thumbnail that I did 2.5 years ago. Yeah, no. So anyways, into the books. I read 4 books in the month of January. 3 I read on my own. 1 was read to me. And that was the first book that was finished in the month of January. I'm not going to talk about this book very much. I'm not even going to put a picture of it on the screen because it is straight trash. But I read, or it was read to me, Kissing the Coronavirus. Who even wrote that trash? By MJ Edwards. It is literally like a 30 or 40, I think it's like 35 page novella. I've seen it floating around YouTube. I know, or BookTube. Bethany from Beautifully Bookish Bethany read it. It was read to me during Becca's drunken live show. She did a drunk live show for the end of the year for her Patreon, I always want to say Patreons, for her patrons. And she had Gavin Ashley on there, Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin and Ashley from A Frolic Through Fiction. It ended up being like an 8-hour live show. I mean, it was a lot of fun. But Ashley ended up reading it. I don't even know how I got on the subject, but she ended up downloading it because it was free on Kindle Unlimited and read it aloud to the class. She skipped around parts. The rest of us kind of just filled it in. It was only 30 pages. It was just a fun, like, counted as my first read of the year. I didn't rate it. Don't read it. It is absolute shit garbage. It's pretty much a smutty love story about, or 30-page novella, smut scene. Excuse, Thunder. Okay, baby, he's doing it again. He wants to lay right in front of me, which okay, I'll move some stuff. Just give me a sec, Jesus. All right, he's happy. So it's like a 30-page like smut scene pretty much about some woman who works in like a biolab and working on like the coronavirus, and the coronavirus comes alive into like this man, and there was stuff about putting the virus. It was just gross. It was absolutely disgusting, but we all got a great laugh out of it. So yeah, that, I don't even think I rated it. If I did, it was 1 star. The next 2 books kind of go together, and I don't even know how to talk about these. But first I read From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I always call her just JLA, Jennifer L. Armentrout. And then I also read the second book in that series, A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. So these books were fantastic. From Blood and Ash, I gave 4 stars. Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, I gave 5 stars. These are fantasy romance books. It is a series. I thought it was just a trilogy. Book 3 comes out in April. I've already pre-ordered it to my Kindle. It'll download onto my Kindle. What is it? April 20th, I think. Something like that, 20th or 21st. It'll auto download onto my Kindle. That one's called The Crown of Gilded Bones. I am so excited. These books are fucking fantastic. From Blood and Ash tells the story of Poppy. Poppy, I'm trying to explain this as best as I can. Poppy lives in a world where, let's see. It's like, how do I explain this? Like, without spoilers or making sense. So, in Poppy's world, she's what they call the maiden, and being the maiden is something super, it's religious. It's very fantastic. She is like held in super high esteem. She learned and was like a protege of the queen and like all this stuff. And right now she's living in like an offshoot in like this area under the Duke and Duchess of this certain area or whatever. And being the maiden means that she has to wear white all the time. She can't be seen or touched or feel pleasure. She always has to wear a veil when she's out and about. And it's a very hard life, and she hates it, and it's not one she chose for herself. It was chosen for her. And so we kind of follow Poppy as she tries to figure out where she fits in her world, and she knows that as being the maiden that she has to help people ascend, and they don't really explain much about that and what that means for a good chunk of From Blood and Ash. They kind of just leave you hanging a little bit, and that's one thing that bothered me and why it got 4 stars, is because they don't really info dump you. They just kind of throw you in this world where you meet Poppy and you're like, okay, she's the maiden, but what the fuck is a maiden? What does that mean? And you know it's tied to their religion, because there's people who have like in the temples, and there's like, she learns under a priestess who works in the temple and stuff like that, and about their gods, and because there's multiple gods in this world, and how they all kind of fit together, and how she's a big part of it, but they never explain why she's such a big part of it and why the maiden is so important. And it was really frustrating, and you don't really learn anything about it till towards the end when you finally get there. So Poppy struggles with her existence. She hates it. She absolutely hates it. And she escapes frequently from the castle because she wants to go out and do things and feel like a normal person. So she wears a disguise, sneaks out, and like will go play cards and gamble in a bar or whatever, and then sneak back into the castle. She's also very highly trained by one of her personal guards named Victor, who she kind of sees as a father figure, because we learned very early on that Poppy's parents are no longer with us, and they're very close, and so he's kind of trained her how to fight. So she's got a little bit going on to where she, you know, she has had a taste of what the real world is and what she really likes, and you know, she just can't have it. So she meets Hawk in this bar and is just like, ooh, okay, like, you know, he's this guard, he's really famous. Come to find out, Hawk's to be her new personal guard, because the other one she has lost. So now she has a new personal guard named Hawk, and it kind of goes from there. It's a fantasy romance. You can easily tell, you know, kind of where it goes. What surprised me about this one was where the story went and the meaning of what being the maiden was and what it meant to ascend and like all this stuff. And that was kind of surprising. I kind of had not a spoiler, but a little bit of a hint of what it was supposed to be or what I thought the supernatural part of it would be. And I was correct. But this one, like right where it ended, you were just kind of like, what the hell? And then you go into A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, which literally picks up at the same scene that it left off in From Blood and Ash. So I'm glad I got to read those back to back. And A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire is total fire. The smut scenes in that one are perfect. And From Blood and Ash, there isn't really much smut. There's like one tiny scene. Other than that, it's more just world building and figuring out who Poppy is and getting to know Poppy and Hawke and all that kind of stuff. And then when you get into A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, then stuff starts to happen and you get a whole bunch of world building. So I've heard some people say it's kind of an info dump. It is, but it isn't, because you're learning about certain things about the world along with Poppy. So I don't feel like it's an info dump because we're learning with her. So it was fine. But yeah, that one was just, it was so good. And the way it ended, like, was so good. I was able to read the first chapter of book 3 and I'm super excited to read it. And it comes out in April. And oh my gosh, so excited. That one is going to be fucking fantastic. This series is so good. I thought it was only going to be 3 books. Apparently it's going to be at least 6. And there's going to be a book from Hawke's point of view at some point. And it's so good. Oh, I guess I should mention, as part of the synopsis, like I'm so rusty at this, in From Blood and Ash, you also know that there is, in Poppy's world, there's somebody called the Dark One who is trying to take over where these people live, and there's things called the Craven which attack the walls. So, and that was very confusing at first when you first get into it and start to kind of feel out the world. Is, you know, Poppy is talking to people and you hear about the Craven and all this stuff, and the Craven are these creatures that like attack the wall and they just rip people to shreds, and that's what killed Poppy's parents. And that is like page 1, you learn about that. And so she, like, and you don't really know what the Craven is, but they have these walls called the Rise that is around every single like major city, so that the Craven can't get in, because they will just annihilate everybody and everything. So that's who the guards protect and like all that kind of stuff. So you don't really know where they came from or why. You just know that they come in a mist, and you don't know much about them at all. So you have what's called the Ascended, which are like the Duke and Duchess and stuff like that. And what Poppy is supposed to do, she's supposed to ascend, and they're kind of like the high society kind of people. You have your normal commoners, you have the Craven, which are just these creatures that just attack. And then you have what you call the Dark One, who they say is from Atlantia, and that is an old like society, an old culture that used to exist, and that he's trying to rise back up, and that he's the reason for the Craven, that he created the Craven, and he's using them to attack the Ascended. And so that's kind of all you get. And by the time you get into A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, you get a whole bunch of backstory and a whole bunch of world building, and you kind of get more of the complete picture. So things start to make sense. Poppy being the maiden makes sense. And so then that all kind of comes together. And I mean, you can kind of guess as you go through From Blood and Ash, but you really don't know what's going on until A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, and things start to make sense and pick up. And then it's like a freight train after that. And it was so good. I think I read A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire in 2 or 3 days. It was so good. And a bunch of us in Becca's Discord were all reading it like kind of at the same time. So we were all messaging each other and stuff, and that was a lot of fun too. I hope I explained that okay. I have a hard time explaining those ones because there's certain things that if I say it, it's spoilery. And then I'm like, oh shit, you left out an important part. And it's like, I'm also really rusty. I haven't done a really proper wrap up in quite a while because I have been reading, but I am right now. I've been doing a lot better. I read 4 in January and I've already read 3 so far in February. So we're doing good. But I absolutely love the From Blood and Ash series. I belong to 2 groups on Facebook. One is a completely spoiler group, and the other one is just JLA's regular Facebook group. She runs both of them. And what's really funny is Mona Awad, who wrote Bunny, is a mod for the From Blood and Ash spoiler one, which is insane. And I think one of her publishers or assistant or something is as well. And so she interacts all the time. She drops teasers all the time. She answers questions. She does all sorts of shit. So like it's it's her group. She said, she goes, you know, people are shocked, but it's my group. I created it. So it's kind of fun. It's kind of a different community, which is really fun because I really, really enjoyed these books. And I wasn't sure that I was going to at first. And because From Blood and Ash, I tried reading sometime in 2020 and I kind of put it to the side. And it was because it was kind of slow to go. It was after Steph from Steph Loves told me to read it and she loved it. And so I read like a couple bits and pieces and I was like, eh. And then in January, I picked up both and read them both and they were fucking fantastic. So if you like fantasy romance, you need to pick them up. Why haven't you already? If not, like if somebody isn't really into romance, I wouldn't suggest it because there is a big romance and it's my perfect kind of romance because I don't like straight romances. Yes, there's a romance and it's a center part of the plot, but there's this whole other fantasy plot that's going on that is super important to the story where, yeah, the romance is important too, but you have to get through the fantasy plot in order to get the romance and vice versa. So I love it. So it's absolutely fantastic. It's probably going to be one of my favorite series depending on how things go. JLA has been, all of the spoilers she's been dropping, and they're like out of context spoilers for book 3. Totally out of context. You have no idea what's going on. It's just a random thing to kind of give you a little snippet. But the fan art is beautiful. I've seen a whole bunch of fan art and it's so, so, so good. But yes, that's my gush, ramble, like incoherent synopsis of the From Blood and Ash book 1 and book 2. But yes, I read those in January and they were fucking fantastic. And how many times can I say I love them in this one video that's already a garbled mess? Okay, and then the last thing that I read is A Deal with the Elf King by Elise Kova. This is gotten a lot of hype lately on BookTube, especially in the fantasy romance or romance community. It's free on Kindle Unlimited. I guess it was pretty hyped at its release. This is book 1 in a series called the Married to Magic series, which from what I understand is all going to take place in the same world. It's just going to be a different couple. So they're standalone stories for each book. So you could read like book 4 without ever reading book 1. It just all takes place in the same world. And from what I understand, you might get little glimpses of some of the previous couples in the other ones, but it's going to focus on a new couple per book. So why can't I think of her name? Her first name. Shit. So this tells the story of Luella and Eldis. First of all, Luella is a horrific name, first name for a character, no offense to the author, but I kept wanting to call her Cruella. And so Luella lives in this world where there's like, it reminded me a lot of Court of Thorns and Roses, ACOTAR, because there's like a barrier that separates the human world from like the Fae elf world, or the elf world pretty much. And they know the elves are on the other side and they can't get through the wall. There are guards on the human side, I forgot what they're called, that kind of guard that way. And if you were to try to walk in there, you'd just be lost in this darkness forever, like these dark woods, and just go round and round and round. So nobody tries to go in there, but once every 100 years, I think it is, every 100 years or so, the Elf King comes across into the human world and takes his human queen, and it has been done for thousands of years, and that's just how it is. And usually the human queen is the only human who can use magic, and she shows her magic around age like 14, 15. It becomes apparent, and then at that time she goes with the priests in the human world, and they kind of teach her and train her how to be a good human queen in the elf world and about their customs and all that stuff, so that when the Elf King comes to collect her and she goes with them, she will know how to conduct herself and so on and so forth. So it probably is pretty obvious and evident that Luella is going to be the human queen. Only when we meet her, she is 19 years old. So, and her town where they always come in, the human queen's always from her town, and she said her town is so close to where the magic barrier is that they tend to live longer lives anyways. So like there's people who would be, I don't know, like in their 50s or 60s but look to be like in their 30s kind of deal, but they still die, but they live a little bit longer than normal humans. And they haven't, the human queen was supposed to have been picked, what was it, 2 years prior? And so the Elf King is starting to get really impatient because she should be evident to him by now, and they should have shown magic. So one day he comes over to collect his human queen. He accuses them of hiding where she is and hiding her magic and hiding the fact that she's supposed to be the human queen, whoever she may be. And one of Luella's patients faints, and Luella is a healer for her town. So they paid to send her to school to learn all about herbology and all that kind of stuff. And so she's very much a healer. They call her a healer, but she uses a lot of roots and herbs and stuff from the earth to make all of her potions and stuff like that. And so one of her patients collapses. She goes over to help her. The Elf King comes through and watches her, and he goes, you just perform magic. And she's like, no, I don't. I healed her. And come to find out, she was being hidden, and she didn't know that she was being hidden. And he takes her and to be his human queen. And the story kind of goes from there. Luella was kind of annoying to start, but I did feel kind of bad for her because she didn't have all the teaching and stuff she needed to be the human queen. Like, she was supposed to get all that training, and it wasn't her fault. Meanwhile, Eldest, who is the Elf King, he knew this, and he knew that she didn't know and stuff like that, and kind of gives her a pass. But once she gets there, things start to get a little bit more complicated. This one is a fantasy romance, but it's a very, very slow burn fantasy romance. If you're somebody who isn't really into like the smut or, you know, anything like that, this would probably be a good one to read. It's very, very slow burn. There's only two, maybe three, I think there's only maybe two smut scenes or smutty like scenes, and they're more fade to black. They're not very graphic at all. It's way more tame than say like from Blood and Ash, which is very graphic. I really enjoyed it. It was okay. I gave it 3 stars, I think, or maybe 4. Did I give it 3 or 4? I can't remember. I gave it 4. Okay. So I know through most of the book it felt like a 3-star to me, only because I had just come off reading A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, which was literal fire, and then coming to this where it was way slowed down, pulled back like 20 notches. I was like, but the story was good for what it was. It was a nice start to finish, standalone. Like, you almost you do want to spend more time with them, but nothing was unresolved. You just know they're going to go on living their lives or whatever. But I did really like the story. It was a good story. I liked that, it was kind of like it wasn't an enemies to lovers. Brandy told me it's the forced marriage trope, kind of, because it's a forced marriage or forced situational trope where you're in the situation and you don't really have a choice, so you just kind of have to roll with it. And that's exactly how it was for both of them. But I liked it. I liked Eldest as a main because he wasn't like how Rhysand was or how Tamlin was, where they were both like, me, Fae man. He wasn't like that. He, being the Elf King, he let her be herself. He gave her her space and was more respectful to start with. I mean, he did get not possessive, but protective and stuff as they started to get to know each other. But he definitely gave her more space to be her, which I enjoyed that. I liked seeing the male not be so alpha, which was really nice. But I enjoyed it. I do plan on reading the next one. I think it's Dance with a Fae Rogue, I believe. Yeah, Dance with a Fae Rogue. And that one comes out sometime later this year, I believe in the fall sometime. So I'll probably pick that one up when it comes out. I'm sure it'll be on Kindle Unlimited. I did enjoy this one. So if you are into fantasy romance or you want to like dip your toe, this would probably be a good one. It's a quick read. I think it's it's like 350 pages, I think. And it's a quick read, nice slow burn. Story was good. The world building was really awesome. I could really picture the world. I really enjoyed the world. It's one of those worlds that has the elves run it, but everybody has their own little spot. So there's vampires over here and fae over here and werewolves over here. So everybody's kind of involved. So I assume as we go through the series, it'll like the next one's obviously going to be with the fae, and maybe there'll be one with the vampires, and as you kind of go or whatever. But I really enjoyed this one, and I gave it 4 stars. Okay, guys, that's it. That is my very late and very rambly and very unput together and probably not very coherent January wrap up. I again apologize that it's super late. Hopefully I can figure out how to edit this and get it that's not on my phone, but if I do have to edit on my phone, I apologize right now for the terrible quality and the terrible quality of the thumbnail, because it's all gonna be done on my phone if I can't figure it out on the laptop, if my husband can't get it to recognize it. But yeah, so I'm finally getting it out there. Again, sorry this is so late. What did you guys read in January? How was your start to 2021? This 2021's kind of started out kind of rough, but it's feeling a little bit better now that we've kind of gotten into it. Let me know what you read. Did you read any of the books that I read? What did you think of them? If you've read From Blood and Ash, please gush with me down in the comments. Like, I'm so stoked for the next book. But other than that, that's it. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.